president will have
said that in every age
on Town Hall. Good evening and welcome to Town Hall. I'm John Marlowe. Our subject tonight affects you in a very big way, either because you have children in school or because your tax dollars are paying for our schools, or both. It's all about how much our children are learning, about keeping them safe from violence, about the quality of their school buildings and their textbooks. Tonight, cash for classrooms. Who will foot the bill, and how much are you willing to pay? There are several plans on the table to pay for our public schools. Tonight, we'll explore what they are and what they mean to you. First, are you willing to give up your kicker? Governor Kitzhaber wants to keep $194 million in tax rebates and dedicate that money to schools. Should businesses pay more? Right now, individuals pay the majority of taxes in Oregon. We'll examine a plan to even that out. Or is the answer inside the classroom? We'll compare Oregon teacher salaries with those of the rest of the country. Would capping teachers' pay solve the problem? We begin, though, with tax rebates. Dan Tilken looks at whether Oregonians are willing to live with higher taxes and without their kickers.
With the tax deadline looming,
H&R Buck Lancaster.
Taxpayers figure how much they owe and contemplate the thought of losing their kicker at the end of the year.
It's the money that we've paid in. If we paid short, they would certainly come looking for us. If we overpay, I think that we should get it back.
Schools need it, children need it, everyone keeps cutting budgets, and as you cut the budgets, the kids all suffer.
Back to...
Turning over the kicker would mean $190 million to help schools in reading, reduce class size, reach kids in trouble, an endless list. It means giving up the $100 check each average taxpayer has coming to them.
We must face the fact that less than that amount will not allow us to meet the goals of the Education Act for the 21st century. And instead, it will suggest a willingness to continue a decade-long decline in our system of public education. Is that a value that we really want to endorse in this state?
The state kept the kicker in 1991 and 93, but the state Republican leadership says this time it will never happen. They won't go for the corporate tax hike either.
Seems to me what Oregonians want us to do is not to complain that they aren't paying enough taxes, but to take the money that they're sending to us and make the priority decisions and to fund education appropriately.
Which makes teachers wonder and worry why the governor would propose a plan that may not work.
I don't know what the answer is. I mean, you know, I know people don't want to be taxed more. I know people want the kicker back, but the schools have to be funded.
As we break down this topic tonight of school funding, that's where we start with the kicker. Should the state keep your kicker to help pay for schools? Let's start with the parent. What do you think? You willing to give up your kicker check?
I am a business owner. I'm also a parent, and I think the schools deserve everything they can get, and I'm willing to do it. And I don't feel the kicker is necessarily owed to me, and I feel that it should be given to the schools, and that's as a parent and as a business owner.
We have a school board member with us tonight. Is the kicker check the answer?
It's one of the answers, I think. The kicker is decided by a projection figured the previous year. And in my estimation, the projection was inadequate when it came to education. And so I believe that the kicker is a valuable portion of the answer to education.
From a legislative viewpoint, is the kicker the answer to school funding?
The kicker is one of the tools on the table. I think more importantly than going straight to the answers, we've got to finish defining what is the problem and how large is the size of the problem. And until we are in a place that we can agree that it's 4.9, 5.1, whatever is the number, then we're ready to come to solutions.
Whatever that number is, would the kicker solve the problem?
Kicker would not, in and of itself, that is to say what the excess tax returns, is not a solution. It's a Band-Aid. It's a potential temporary bridge to get from one side of the river to the other. There's a need to do a lot of long-term work and a lot of conversation we need to do as a state to say, yes, this is what we want, or no, this isn't what we want. But the kicker is one of the tools on the table.
In our audience tonight, let me go over here first.
Well, everything that's been proposed is a Band-Aid, but in regards to the kicker, we have to pay taxes for our services that we want to pay for. If we already have that money out there, then we just need to do that.
Anyone in the group who wants to take the other side, that the kicker does not belong in the school funding formula?
Senator Charles Starr, and I believe that we've been right in sending the kicker back previously. If we had not, the roll-up, we would not be able to fund this time. If we spend the kicker this time, we will be in a serious place in 2 years. This is not the way to raise taxes by keeping that which belongs to the people.
I'm Senator Tony Corcoran from Cottage Grove, and the fact of the matter is keeping the kicker doesn't raise taxes. I'm not convinced that keeping the kicker is the solution. There's other things on the table, but one of the problems with keeping the kicker is that we don't deal with the greater inequity between corporate taxes, what businesses pay, and what individuals pay.
Go ahead.
John, it's interesting because this is really a political debt issue. In order to keep the kicker, the legislature has to generate 36 votes in the Oregon House of Representatives to pass it. It's not going to get 36 votes in the Oregon House of Representatives. It's just not a viable option.
Anyone want to disagree with that it's not a viable option?
I think it's a very viable option. They talk about the promise to the people. They also promised the people that they would give a quality education in the state of Oregon, and it's falling short. And unless the kicker is the answer and part of that answer, I think that we've made a big mistake because we've forgotten what our responsibilities are to the communities, to the state for economic development. Education figures into all of that, and the kicker is a great investment in that.
Hypothetical, if lawmakers hear in big numbers from voters that they would be willing to give up the kicker, would that change the formula and make it possible?
I think it depends. I mean, so far, lawmakers have heard from lots of parents in Salem that they want $4.9, $5.1, $5.6 billion for K-12 education. So far, there's only been movement to 4.7, so it doesn't look like the lobbying effort that's happened so far has been effective.
Yes.
My name is Richard Burke. I'm with the Mainstream Liberty Caucus. We're affiliated with the Libertarian Party. One of the things that I find when I talk to people is that there's a crisis of confidence in the public schools right now, and that crisis of confidence is making people wary of giving them more money. And that confidence crisis is rooted in a fundamental question: who should control the future of a child's education, the state or parents? And what we have is a charter school bill now that's been severely weakened, and that is going, if that does not pass, if a good bill doesn't pass, then the state is going to continue to control most of education, and parents will not be willing to give public schools the support they're asking for.
Sherry Harris, I'm the state president of the Oregon School Employees Association, and I need to let you know that there is a trend in this state that we've set patterns from in the past, and this is all about priorities. And where we have said health care was a priority, we made health care a reality. And where we said the prisons were a priority, we made the prison increase a reality. And it's now time for us to say that the education is the priority, because once we define that as the priority, then we focus on the solution. And then we look at all of the aspects of the solution. I agree with our representative here that has said this is just a bridge, this kicker. This is just a piece. It is not an increase in taxation, but it's just a bridge piece. We need to look at the total stable funding of education and have that be the priority. Then we all focus on the solution pieces.
Yes.
My name is Deborah Lapardo, and I'm just a mom and a voter, and I find the comment made by the gentleman that the kicker was dead and that the parents and the public are having no effect, and that 4.76 is the only viable number out there. I would question then why hasn't Speaker Snodgrass moved that through the House, moved it through the Senate, and made it a reality? That's not the case. And conversely, I spoke to someone as a mom, but not as a legislator, who told me there are very high-level people who have 4.95 votes coming. So please, please explain to us parents how we are wasting our time and that you've got it done, and then if so, let's have it done tomorrow.
Well, I don't have anything done. I'm not a member of the legislature. But my impression...
You spoke so definitely. I thought sure you knew.
My impression of what is happening in the legislature is that there is not a movement to go anywhere to 4.95 or to 5.1 or even higher, which has been suggested. And in fact, let me tell you an anecdotal story. I was giving blood at the Red Cross right around here just a week ago. And the person who was going to give me the stick to start my blood flows looked at who I worked for, and she said, Oregon Tax Research, are they going to take our kickers away? This is somebody I just ran into. And the woman across the way from me, a completely different person was helping her, said, You know, can't people just write a check to the schools if they want to when they get their kicker check back? The answer is sure they can. They did that the last time we got the kicker, and they raised a lot of money that way.
The fact is, though, we have a commitment to community services, and one of the commitments we have in this state is to provide adequate and stable funding for the education of our children. $100 a person, the average tax return, that's 27 cents a day. If 27 cents a day is going to allow us in Oregon to raise the academic bar for our students, then I believe the majority of Oregonians will support that. I also disagree wholeheartedly that there's a confidence or lack of confidence in our public schools in Oregon. In fact, we're doing a very good job, and we're challenging ourselves to raise that bar even higher.
I just want to know, I'm not a cynical person, but a year ago when those ads ran on the radio claiming that the schools are so underfunded the kids don't even know who the president is, that made me cynical about this cause. And I just wonder, to me the credibility was gone when those ads ran, so how am I supposed to believe in this anymore?
Anyone want to respond to that? Right over here.
No, actually, my name is Richard Leonetti. I'm also with Oregon Tax Research, but let's take it as a school lesson. You give your child $2 for lunch, and you send him off to school, and halfway to school he decides he wants a chocolate milkshake. And he comes back and he says, oh, I need some more money for lunch. I spent it on a milkshake instead of my lunch, so I need another buck. Are you going to give him the buck? That's kind of what the legislature did. They set a budget. It was an inflation-adjusted budget for schools. The schools decided to spend more on salaries than inflation, and they did that, and now they say they need more money. Now, somewhere you've got to have some discipline. Schools where you're supposed to learn discipline. Obviously, we're not learning it at the schools. The legislature has some discipline. I've got confidence in them. We made a deal with the taxpayers. Let's leave the deal. They agreed to a budget, and the budget we funded, give them back the money they overpaid.
You've set the stage for one of the discussions we'll have later in the broadcast, which is teacher salaries. You were shaking your head during some of that.
Yes, Representative Jeff Merkley from East Portland. The key to not being cynical about our schools is to really have facts about the numbers. And we've had a commission working for 2 years, and it has worked very hard to produce a model of what it really takes to fund our schools and to cost that out. That is the foundation for the number we have now, $4.96 billion. And I'm going to tell you that that has been missing in this debate, an absolutely critical factor. And now we can sit back and we can look and say, what does it take to provide a quality basic education for our children? And if that is the number, then we as a community have an obligation to come up with it, and there are many ways to get there.
Did we come close at all to answering your question?
No.
Would you restate it, and we'll make someone answer? Well, we won't make them, but we'll certainly ask them to.
Well, the impression I got, first of all, is that the parents and the business people who are behind us, because the places like the Coalition for School Funding is business alliance with parents, we're having no effect in Salem, and I don't agree at all with that. So I would like you to tell me, I have heard, I guess Representative Lundquist, Senator Randy Miller, several others have come out for 4.95 and 4.96. I have heard it said maybe Brady Adams is for 4.95 or 4.96. Tell me why then, as the tax-paying group, you're telling me it's no further than 4.76.
Well,
I need that explanation. I miss it.
I'd be happy to defer to Senator Starr on this question. I think he'd like to respond.
Let's get Senator Starr there.
Thank you very much. We, this afternoon, Randy Miller's Senate Revenue Committee passed a bill out which would force us to vote next week on keeping the kicker and the revenue increase, the tax increase on corporations. That will be soundly killed on the floor of the Senate, and we will know how much money we have then to balance the budget.
Our other senator.
We're playing football with the kids right now. The sending out that bill, especially from the Senate, has already been demonstrated to be unconstitutional. This revenue measure increase has to come from the House, number one. Number two, the reason there's no number right now is that the Republicans in leadership have not created a budget. We have no co-chair's budget at this point. There is intense pressure by Republicans and Democrats in the building to get to the 4.95. But the Republicans steadfastly refuse to say at what expense they would do that within the current funding stream, because it means either cutting back on prison construction, which was very popular in this state. It means cutting down on additional state police. It means gutting some of the, taking 50,000 people off the Oregon Health Plan if we do it within the confines of the current budget. The reason that they have not come forward with that budget, we would like them to come forward tomorrow with a 4.725 and see see how that fares on the floor of both houses and both caucuses and see how people feel about that. That also will be defeated soundly.
And so we begin tonight, all of this discussion touched off by the topic of the kicker check. Would you be willing to give yours up for schools? Up next, the promise of more money for schools without anyone paying higher taxes and without squeezing other budgets. Town Hall will continue in just a moment.
I think there's a lot of excess, a lot of waste in the state budget.
I think our state has to reevaluate their priorities. I think education should be one of the highest priorities in our state.
I think school funding is some of the most important things we could be doing with our tax money, and it's our future, and if we deny our kids, we're denying ourselves.
Real-time closed captioning on Channel 2 is brought to you by TriMet. The power of 2000 takes you back for a moment in time.
It was November 16th, 1973. Portlanders celebrated the opening of the Fremont Bridge, an engineering marvel.
The whole section was literally screwed up those bolts.
Today, the graceful arch stands as the tallest and the newest bridge spanning the Willamette.
Channel 2 News, sharing moments in time.
Now and into the next millennium.
Experience the power of 2000.
Proudly presented by Les Schwab Tire Centers.
Raisin Bran, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on? That Raisin Bran has less than half your folic acid for the day. Even less of your zinc.
That's a weenie breakfast, Frank.
There's almost no vitamin E at all. Looks like you need total Raisin Bran. Just one bowl gives you 100% of 10 important vitamins and minerals you need for the day. No other Raisin Bran comes close.
Attaboy, Frank.
And there's room for my spoon. Total Raisin Bran, total cornflakes. What are you getting for breakfast?
It's the Ross $14.99 swimwear collection. Save up to 75% on the summer's hottest styles.
Do you love it? I love it. I got it at Ross.
The Ross $14.99 swimwear collection. Don't you just love it?
As the crisis in Kosovo continues, ABC News is there. For the latest overnight developments, join Diane Sawyer and Charles Gibson for Good Morning America.
A new statewide survey shows 49% of Oregonians believe money is the most serious problem in schools. 28% worry most about overcrowding. Tonight on Town Hall, we're looking at ways to pay for Oregon's public schools. A new idea in Salem is to use money from the big tobacco settlement. Mark Hass has details of that.
Oregon's share of the tobacco settlement is supposed to be paid over the next 25 years. But Oregon's treasurer wants to borrow a trick from the financial markets and sell that stream of payments for cash up front.
This is what we do here is we manage money, and what we try to do, what we're proposing is to take this stream of money from this tobacco settlement and use it in a way that's good policy. And I think it's also good politics.
Good politics because it would raise $200 million immediately for Oregon schools. Under Hill's plan, another $200 million would establish a health care fund, which is what a lot of people think the tobacco money should go for. The remainder would establish a rainy day fund. The idea is getting a warm reception from legislative leaders who say it would bail them out of the thorniest problem in Salem, coming up with enough money for schools.
Back to the old saying, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And I believe in this case, that part of the proposal makes an awful lot of sense.
Tobacco settlement money for schools. Senator, is it that simple?
No, not at all. I mean, most of the scheme that, and this is not new to Jim Hill, Ken Strobeck had also looked at this earlier. The problem with it is, in both cases, it requires bonding. Bonding is an inappropriate way to fund schools. It's a good way to fund roads when you got 20 years to pay it off and the roads go bad, but that's not how you pay for schools, by increasing further debt. The Republicans have been concentrating on bonding as a mechanism to fund schools, and you're simply creating a debt that goes into the future. You wouldn't do that in your own personal checkbook. You wouldn't refuse to pay your 18% loan and just keep the cash. What you would do instead is you'd pay off your debts, you'd get the adequate money that you needed to pay for the services you needed. You wouldn't go into debt further. That's what bonding is.
Anyone want to take it from the other direction, that it is a good idea?
I don't think it's a good idea, so I withdraw.
Anyone who is in favor of using tobacco money for schools?
Yeah, my name's Dave Lefkowitz, and I'm a parent and small business person. I just was on that point, though. There's a lot of talk about education. I think we all agree that's the investment into the future. And isn't that what we're talking about as a people, that that's when the payoff is going to come financially? The more we educate, the more they can produce. And for the same tax percentage, the more that citizen is going to contribute back into the coffers.
What I did want to say is that I think this is going to be really bad if they do it. First of all, the tobacco money is ostensibly meant to compensate people for health care costs. If that's the case, then the money should go to health care costs. Maybe fund medical savings accounts for people to get an MSA program going on in Oregon. But what it'll do is it's a one-term deal. And in the next legislative session, that chunk of money is not going to be there. And the public schools, you know, if you agree with the premise that they are in trouble now, they'll be even more trouble next time, and they'll be wanting more of our taxes next time. So I don't think it's a good idea.
Jeff Merkley, representing from East Portland. We have to really work hard to avoid these easy fixes that are bad in the long term. Bonding is borrowing money from our children. Are we, as a community, going to borrow our children's funds to pay for their own education? It is a bad idea. There may be a responsible way to do it. If you take the trust funds and you put them into a trust and you take a portion of the interest and use it temporarily to assist, then it could be a small piece of the solution without taking away the principle for the long term, which should be, by the way, dedicated to health care.
Tobacco money, there's another thing to look at, and that is tax dollars. Let's take a look at some numbers from 1978 and 1979. Oregon households paid 51% of the state's taxes. Businesses pitched in 49%. By 96 and 97, the amounts had changed drastically. Households paying 61% and businesses paying 39%. Is that fair? Should businesses be paying more, or taxpayers paying too much, individual taxpayers?
That's about as misleading as it gets. The rates haven't changed. You can really unbalance this wonderfully. If you chase all the business out of the state, all of it, get it all gone, then the individuals pay 100% of the tax. And would that be unfair? But that's what you're doing. You know, this business of business paying taxes, it gets passed on one way or another, except for the people involved in international kind of things and national kinds of things. They can't pass it on. But the banks, the utilities, they all love increased taxes because they can pass it on. The rest of the folks can't. And I'm no longer in business, thank God. But you're kidding yourself when you say look at that number. It's unbalanced because we're an unpopular place to open a business. And because we're unpopular, there's fewer businesses and more bodies pay more taxes.
And raising the corporate tax is just going to make us less popular.
Absolutely.
Just one more drive Oregon businesses even further away.
Yeah, John, that's essentially correct. I mean, we took a look at plant locations and plant expansions in 1997. There were more than 10,500 such locations or expansions in the country. Oregon got 13. So we're way down the learning curve on getting people to locate or expand businesses in the state of Oregon already.
Yes.
And maybe taxes is one reason, but could also education be a reason? I've heard it said that there are companies who are starting to not locate here, even from California, because they can't get people up here who want to put their kids in the schools. They don't want the universities because they can't get the engineers. So while the tax-paying groups are looking at taxes per se, maybe they should have a more well-rounded look and look at the education element to that, and maybe they should try to work with us instead of jump to an automatic answer of no taxes.
Cynthia, if I could get you to go to the back row there for just a moment.
Earl Fisher, Superintendent at Class County School District. If I recollect correctly, before Measure 5 was passed, about 60% of the property taxes were paid by businesses through property tax. After Measure 5, that has almost reversed. And business now is paying 40%. Property owners are paying 60%. People have not seen their taxes gone down, even though the schools have been devastated, just devastated by the loss of revenue. In business, knows that they have not picked that up. And I believe they have a responsibility as citizens of the state to do that.
Dave, as a parent, as you listen to this discussion about whether individual taxpayers should pay or whether businesses should pay, do you care?
Oh, very much. I'm in a quandary here because I hear you're saying that education has been devastated, and everybody's saying, no, it hasn't, it's still going on. I've got students right now who will go to Chemeketa for 2 years. From there, they will go to Intel, and they'll be hired for $25,000 for 2 years. Within 5 years, they can be making $50,000. Intel will put them in for higher education and most likely pay for it. To become a teacher, it takes you 4 years that you have to pay for yourself. You start at $25,000. The top salary is $50,000 for a PhD, 12 years of education. We're talking later about putting a cap on teacher salary. What bright young individual is going to go in and become a teacher? The teaching force is going to deteriorate. And you're talking about a lot of things. You know, you've got to get back to getting quality education. And as a parent, I don't care what it takes. I want my children to have good education so they've got an excellent opportunity to have a chance of their own. And not only my children, but theirs. And they're the ones I'm worried about.
But see, I want them to have a good education, too.
Yes.
The thing is that I don't think that throwing money at the problem is the solution.
I agree.
I don't think we're talking about throwing money at the problem. I'm a business person. I am willing to pay the increased corporate tax in order to fund schools. I am where I am because of a quality education. The people that I work with are where they are because of the education they get from the state system of higher ed. I believe that we need to continue to prove that the K through 12 and the higher ed are quality so that we increase the quality of living in the state of Oregon and the better jobs. Right now, my children look at going to work elsewhere because the quality of the jobs and the education that they receive are not to the level in other areas. And that's sad.
Mr. Representative Jeff Merkley, we need to have business at the table to help us solve this problem. Associated Oregon Industries has been saying for 2 years that education for our K through 12 children is one of their top priorities. We need to have them with us at the table working out a solution. When you take all business taxes together in this state, we are the 7th lowest in the nation. We're not near the top at all. And last time after the kicker, we had over an 8% individual tax, while we had just between a 3 to 4% corporate tax. So there have been significant disparities, and we need to have business in the conversation.
There is much more to come on Town Hall tonight as we discuss school funding and how to pay for schools in Oregon. 80 cents of every operational school dollar goes to pay salaries and benefits for teachers and other employees. Is limiting pay the answer? We'll examine that when Town Hall continues.
OSU, our hats are off to you. In the Marshall family, there's this very long tradition with Oregon State. Started back in 1974 and ran for 16 years until 1990. All 7 of us graduated from there. I can remember when my last brother graduated in 1990, my dad pointing back at the Memorial Union, which was behind him, and saying, "Kids, I feel like I own part of that building." And in many ways, he really did.
Kathy Marshall, weeknights at 5 and 11 on Channel 2 News.
For the mother who can no longer remember a daughter's name. For the husband who has lost the ability to recognize his own wife. For each family member that shoulders the burden of care. The Alzheimer's Research Alliance of Oregon is searching for a treatment and cure. We support the innovative research being done by scientists here in Oregon. Please check off the box for Alzheimer's disease research on your Oregon tax form. Help us make Alzheimer's disease a memory.
With AT&T Digital One Rate, this is no ordinary phone. It's my you can reach me in Austin, then Denver, then Philly phone. My hey, let me pick up the kids today phone. My I'm working from home today phone. My hey honey, Michael made black belt phone.
The world of wireless has changed. AT&T Digital One Rate. No roaming or long distance charges across all 50 states. So now AT&T could make your wireless phone your only phone.
I really like to shop.
Americans love value.
That's why it's easy to spot a Chevy Malibu owner.
I shopped a lot before I bought the Malibu.
When you're 6'4", you need a lot of leg room.
And I don't have to take it in to get a tune-up for 100,000 miles.
You see, Malibu has the features people want.
Power steering, air conditioning,
airbags, as well as the analog brakes.
For a lot less than Camry and Accord.
The Malibu is an excellent value.
It feels great to get a lot for your money.
The car you knew America could build. Malibu, genuine Chevrolet.
KATU and Denny's recognize the power of giving at Shriners Hospital for Children.
It's up to us to take care of other people and be of help to other people. We do need drivers. We need people in the clerical end. We need a lot of people. So I don't think we can ever have enough volunteers. We can always use them.
KATU Channel 2 and Denny's encourage you to get involved with Shriners Hospital for Children and experience the power of giving. Call 221-3487.
Earlier this year, hundreds of parents, teachers, and students rallied at the state capitol in support of education. The demonstrators said money problems have forced some districts to lay off teachers, to use outdated textbooks, and to cut programs. Their bottom line, schools need $5.1 billion to keep running, and they say neither the governor nor the legislature is offering enough money. Mike, do we need more money for Oregon schools?
Well, I don't think we do. And, you know, actually, I cut myself off in the last segment. We were talking about businesses not doing enough to help out. And Intel, the example was brilliant. That Intel now is paying for the continuing education and adult education. My employer does it. In fact, I was just recently enrolled in classes that my employer paid for. I can't see a better way that business could help out to further the education of people. Now, yeah, granted, we might want to be talking about the K through 12. My employer doesn't help pay that bill, but then again, through salary and whatnot, as I grow in my education, I can progress within the organization, maybe make some more money, maybe buy a better house, maybe pay higher property tax, and then fund more of it myself.
Gentleman behind you.
You know, I've got a personal experience with our daughter and her education that I think has got something in it that's worth hearing. She went to Portland Christian School through the 11th grade, and then for her final year, she switched to David Douglas. She came home after the first week at David Douglas and was amazed at how much easier it was than the private school. And one other thing, at that time, the tuition at David Douglas was just exactly twice what it was at Portland Christian.
You know, I listen to things, and this is going to sound rather simplistic. I'm Keith Hurtstrom. I had 31 years in public education, Lake Oswego. I would think that every parent, every legislator, every person in this room, the number one thing they want to do is put a great teacher in every classroom in the state. That's got to be, that's where the rubber meets the road, okay? That's where the money's got to go, because I'll tell you, in order to do that, you've got to encourage great people to come into the profession from colleges and from other programs. The one way to make sure that those great people don't come into our program and become teachers is to mess with salaries, mess with their retirement, mess with their benefits. I agree with this gentleman. These are tough jobs. There are no tougher jobs in the world than education. I've been there, and I had great kids and great parents. I had one of the easier jobs. But this is one of the most difficult things to do in America, and it's one of the most important things. How can you argue about paying a teacher what is fair? I don't get it.
You brought up teacher salaries. Let me give some statistics, and then we'll go into that. Let's take a look at teacher salaries. There's a proposal. You know, I'm going to mess this up. I know. No, I'm not. I'm not going to mess it up. There's a proposal in the legislature right now that would allow school districts to invoke a salary cap. Now, according to the National Education Association, here's how Oregon's average teacher salary compared to the rest of the nation. Number 1 is Alaska at more than $50,000 a year. California is there at number 9. Oregon, number 14, 40,000 plus, approaching 41,000. South Dakota is number 51 at 26,764. And the reason there's 51 there, by the way, it's not that we have a math problem. They included the District of Columbia as a state, so that's why we came up with 51. Let's go ahead and delve right into this idea of putting a cap on teachers' salaries. Will this help us?
No, I don't think it will help us at all. In my district, if we're talking about needing more money, since 1990, my district has physically lost over $2 million, not percentage, total loss. We have reduced our teaching staff by 33%. We've had to close 2 schools. We've had to lay off 44% of our classified people. We've had to reduce every activity we have in our school. And now we want these people who are left, who are the beat-up people left in terms of our teachers, to do even more and tell them that we're going to cap their salaries. I don't believe that's good public policy.
We can make this a teacher versus parent issue, but that's not the truth. The fact is, teachers and parents and community members were very solid on the fact that our schools need better funding. We have a very well-educated, very high-standard workforce in this state. 37 other states in this country recognize our teaching credentials to allow us to go to their states to work. I think we should be very proud of that and build on it. We have a very tough time in the next several years of attracting people into the workforce. We know that we lose 30 to 50% of our new teachers within the first 5 years because of the incredible work load placed on them, and then looking at the future employment opportunities and future income opportunities available to them. Putting a salary cap on them is going at the wrong issue.
You lose your teachers in the first 5 years because of the screwy wage schedules you put together. You pay, and take Portland for example, 1/3 of their people are at the top rate of $50,000, and you try and hire at 25. Now, if you pay near the average is currently 42.3 thereabouts. I'll bet you we could take, instead of giving those high-end teachers a $1,500 raise this year, give them $500 and raise the bottom guys about $4,000, because that would be the trade-off. We could hire all you wanted. The problem is discipline in setting those wages. You look at any period you want, and I'll take the period prior to Measure 5 to now. In that time period, the legislature and property taxes have funded education, K through 12, at approximately inflation rate, about 25% in that time period. You people collectively have raised your teacher salaries on average 33%, 50% faster than inflation. You take any time period, take his graphic that was just on the screen. From 97 to this year, you went up about 5%. Now, inflation is not 5% this year.
Let's get some reaction.
My name is Steve Fraga. I'm the executive director of the Oregon School Employees Association. I'd like to make a couple of points. First of all, I think we do need to be calm and rational, particularly when we start tossing about numbers. The truth of the fact is, since the 91 to 93 biennium, education has been funded at 28.3%, the roll-ups between 91 and 93 biennium to now. That is under the rate of inflation and growth. It's certainly well under the total general fund roll-up in the budget, which is 44%. Inflation and growth is 40.4. All of the other major categories, and this is straight out of Legislative Revenue Office, are significantly higher, and we're talking about sometimes 3 and 4 times higher. And a classic example is transportation economic development at 156.4%. Human resources, 61.4. So the fact of the matter is, in the major categories of this state budget, education has lagged far behind. The second point I want to make, and I want to give some balance as we talk about employees' salaries or workers' salaries. I am very gratified to represent 17,000 classified school employees, professional folks including secretaries, educational assistants, bus drivers who safely get our children to schools, cooks, custodial maintenance folks, audiovisual, and other technical support folks. And I will tell you that last month, half of the personnel we represent made less than $1,500 gross salary. Now, you take taxes out, you take other things out, and I ask all Oregonians to think and put things in proper perspective as we talk about capping folks' salary.
Do we pay our teachers too much? Do we pay our teachers too little?
I think people that propose a cap either don't have children in public school, or they don't know any teachers, or they're not very involved in their community, because I believe that parents and teachers are together on this, because if you know what's going on in the schools, it's almost an insult to consider capping their salary. These people are saints. I have a child in 5th grade, and believe me, when I hear the kinds of behavior problems and the kinds of things that teachers have to deal with these days, the last thing that I would propose to balance any kind of school budget is to cap the teacher's salary.
My name is Rob Kramer. I'm the president of the Oregon Education Coalition. We're a grassroots consumer advocacy group for education. The notion that we underpay our teachers in Oregon is just wrong. You saw from the graphic that we're 14th in the nation in average salary. We're actually 8th in the nation if you adjust that for cost of living, and if you include all benefits in there, we're 3rd in the nation. However, capping teacher salaries is inherently a bad idea. The problem is not that our teachers are paid too much, it's that our good teachers are paid far too little and our bad teachers are paid far too much. They're all under the same collective bargaining agreement that they all get paid regardless of how good they are. So we need to deal with that and create some type of a market in the service for teachers, whereas now they're controlled by a collective bargaining agreement.
There are those who argue that teachers are pretty well paid when compared to other public workers in the state of Oregon. Does anyone want to take up that cause in this forum?
I think they are well paid, but I think they deserve their pay. I don't apologize for paying teachers well. You look what we've asked them to do. We've asked them to become specialists in every type of category. They are now art specialists, PE specialists, music specialists, because we've had to get rid of our specialists because of the cuts we've had. We've asked them, since 1992, we have $8 less per student than we did in '92 in our district. We've cut 20% of our teachers, and you're asking them to take more kids into the classroom, do more, and then you've asked them to do the Oregon Education Reform Act and add that to their days and continue to develop benchmarks and standards and test to that. I think we pay them well. I think they deserve to be paid well, and I think they do a good job, and I think they could do better if we funded education better.
Let's ask a couple of our teachers. Were either of you ever overpaid?
No, I want to avoid the issue of salary, but I appreciate what the gentleman said in terms of the workload. I feel that I'm adequately paid. I feel that we should increase pay for beginning teachers. We have to make the field attractive, but I think that geez, if I were going to college and had to spend 4 or 5 years to get a degree, go into debt to do that, to get started in school, I mean, and the morale issue and the way teachers are looked upon, it's not a very prestigious field. I mean, all the ills of the nation are due to us.
If I cap your salary, are you okay with that?
Well, if you define capping, when they're talking about 3.5 or something, I just don't like the process. I can't go much further, so I have no room to move. I'd have to, get a summer job. I'm satisfied with my salary.
If I kept your salary?
Right now, I make a very comfortable living. And as I said before, I'm more interested in getting quality people into my field that I'm proud of. We talk about bad teachers. As in any profession, there probably, there's an adequate number, but in the education field, the people I'm associated with are some of the most dedicated, hardworking people. I will say this, however, in all my experience of teaching, 28 years, the morale is starting to go down. There is now a depression starting to build, and young people can sense this, and why should I become this?
And the depression is because?
It's just like everything is being dumped. And all of the, like he said, all of the ills are my fault.
It's ironic that we be talking about capping teacher salaries at a time when this state has, for 8 years in a row, had the highest SAT scores in the country. Our 8th graders on international tests, 2nd in the world in science, 8th in the world in math. We have a very good system, and we are providing a good system for our students. We have some students that need services that we're not providing anymore, because the opportunities that our kids have today are fewer opportunities than what we had when we were growing up, because programs have been cut and we've pulled the support systems out from underneath them.
We need to take a break. Quick comment.
Sadly, no matter what we decide, no matter what everyone in Salem says, 4.9, 5.1, 4.76, all of this will rest on the teacher's back. Even the parents walk out the door at 9:05, and whatever we leave them with is going to be on the teacher's backs through the entire process.
There is much more to come on Town Hall. What if Portlanders had to pay a new tax that went directly to the school district? A plan in the legislature would let Portland and every other district do exactly that. That's what we'll tackle when Town Hall continues.
Each second brings us closer to the year 2000.
We've all heard the scare stories.
But at Channel 2 News, we're taking a positive look at Y2K.
With stories focusing on new discoveries, technologies, and future trends for work and play.
It's Y2K information you can look forward to.
Join Channel 2 News each week as we count down to the next century, bringing you the hope of a better tomorrow. That's the power of 2000. Channel 2 News, partnering for a brighter future with Montgomery Ward.
Next, Rosie, Martha Stewart's back.
Rosie, are you up for the challenge?
Yes, I am, Martha. It's Rosie versus Martha Stewart in a kitchen showdown. And Chicago Hope's Rocky Carroll. Next, Rosie.
Monday at 4 on the power of 2000.
Well, it's a big deal we're talking about. A big deal. Well, I only make big deals. Uh-oh. Better get Mako.
Painting costs aren't a big deal when you say, uh-oh, better get Mako.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the $6 million question. What's for dinner tonight? Come with me. How would you like to try a new chicken dinner?
That is good.
New chicken helper.
It's very creamy.
Creamy Parmesan.
Delicious. Good fresh homemade flavors. My kids would love this.
20 minutes, yum.
Gotta love quick when you're a working woman.
For a delicious chicken dinner that cooks in only 20 minutes, try new Chicken Helper in 5 fabulous flavors.
This will be dinner tonight.
Go.
Beautiful, Mike, really is.
Ándale, baby.
Welcome to Taco Night at the Andersons.
Dinner.
Well, that was fast.
Bring home the new Grande meal and make tonight Taco Night. Choose any 10 tacos or bean burritos, plus a Nachos Bel Grande, plus a Mexican pizza. All for just $9.99.
Until next time.
We have talked tonight about a variety of ways to raise extra money for Oregon's public schools. Now, here is another one. Lawmakers in Salem are looking at allowing school districts to go to the voters for a special tax. What do we think? Is this the way to fund schools in the state of Oregon?
I think it's, again, another one of the tools, as long as you, the community is closely connected to the school, that what we're talking about here is allowing that local school district to go out to their local voters and ask for a small, limited additional amount of funds that will be used in that particular school district. It has some problems. Some communities are able to afford to be able to do this. They can do it, and they don't have to think very much about it. Some of our communities in this state, we have very real timber-depressed communities throughout the state, and I personally had the opportunity to visit those schools. They can't afford it, and it doesn't matter how much permission you give to them, those families and those communities cannot, no matter how much they want to, bring in more revenue for their children. That's one of the problems we have as a state legislature, is coming up with solutions to work for all children in the state, no matter where they're located.
Are you for or against it?
Both.
There's a political answer.
Actually, I think I agree with her. It's very unequal as far as the areas. Some are much more prosperous, and the others are very depressed. I also think that it is a portion of what can be used to fix the problem.
We have to make sure that we don't allow this to distract us from the real issue, though. The state legislature needs to come up with a system whereby we can provide adequate and stable funding for the core education opportunity that we're going to provide every student in this state. Then if local communities have programs they would like to add above and beyond that system, fine, then let's find a way to have a local option. But we cannot start pitting communities against each other, the haves and the have-nots. We need to have equity, we have to have an equal educational opportunity, and it has to meet a standard for every student.
In the back.
I'm opposed to this on two grounds. One is, as has been mentioned, is that it is not equal throughout the state. In many of our rural areas, we're going to have a very, very difficult time, and at least the options that have been proposed are minuscule in terms of our needs. They will give us very little money. The second point is it will take the pressure off people in the legislature who are looking for any excuse they can not to fund public education.
Cynthia, right in front there.
With respect to what Jim Sager said, look what he said. He said, first give us all the money we want, and then allow a local option so we can get even more. And that, you know, that isn't what we need to be doing. I think that we need to be looking at other options. I've heard statistics saying that only $1 out of $5 actually makes it to the classroom. I know that in Beaverton we've got their own school buses, their own property to run them. They don't farm it out. They got their own parts inventory. There are a lot of places you can look around where I think you could save significant dollars.
Sherry Harris again from the Oregon School Employees Association, and doggone it, that's the kind of conversation that takes back from the dynasty and the legacy that we have had with public education. If we're focusing on the outgoing product, which is the highest standard, the highest bar in education, then you don't have the conversations that talk about either the capping of any public employee's salary or the disdainful position as to what we're going to rob Peter to pay Paul. It's time to step to the plate. It's time to say that in this state, this is a priority. The legacy of our children, the standards of this state. You want industry coming in, then you make it a place that has a rich history and a purpose for being here, and industry is here. The corporate burden is not the same as the private burden of taxation in this state with the individual homeowner. Please hear the issue very clearly. Do you want the money to fund education? And there's almost a piece of that that's ironic, because you see somebody funded every education in this room. Did they have this debate? Did they abdicate their responsibility? No. Classically in this state, those are the voters that go to the plate and vote for the issues that have put the money in education.
Gentleman in the back row.
My name is Jim Ferris. I'm a small business owner and a father of 4 kids. I think this is another bad idea. I live in Lake Oswego, so I know that my kids will be fine with this, but this is not going to give a good quality education to all of our kids in our state. You know, we've been talking about Band-Aid approaches. We need to cut the bull and come up with some stable funding throughout the whole state. It's got to be a priority.
We are down to our final couple of minutes. We've talked about a lot of things here tonight. I'd like to ask you to help me out here, and we need to move quickly. Some predictions. A year from now, where will we be on school funding in the state of Oregon? Where do you think we'll be?
Still fighting?
No, I think that we're going to come together as a state and put together a long-term funding package. I'm very optimistic.
We'll be having the same debate in the 2000 election.
A year from now?
Same debate, only more heated.
It'll be sooner than that. We get a ballot measure passed that takes $1 billion bite out of our budget. We'll be back talking about this a lot quicker.
Senator, you agree?
I think you're going to hear John Kitzhaber next week up here in Portland talk about the fact that we need a long-term solution. Nobody in the building's coming even close to having that discussion. Nobody's showing any leadership on it. I think it's highly likely we'll be continuing this debate for a while, but I do believe that Mr. Sager's right. I think that Oregonians are getting fed up with the nonsense, and they're going to want to put together a stable long-term plan.
Keith, you've watched this for 31 years.
I'd like to be more optimistic. I've seen these kinds of discussions on town hall and other presentations for 30 years, and we're still at the same point. What do we believe in the state of Oregon? What is most important to us? And can we bite the bullet and support education? It's an age-old question in this state, and I don't know if I'll live long enough to see it solved.
How can you influence what is done in the state of Oregon? Here are a couple of options. You can contact the legislature. The phone number, 1-800-332-2313, or within Salem, it is 986-1187. You can leave a message for a legislator or for a committee. Also, you can write to your representative. You do that by writing to your representative or senator in care of the Oregon State Capitol, Salem, the zip 97310. The legislature has the website. The web address is on your screen. Also, we would like to hear what you think of these proposals for our schools. Should kicker checks be dedicated to schools? How about money from the settlement with tobacco companies? What do you think about limiting teacher pay? Our talkback line, 736-3415. Also, there is our web address, which is at www.katu.com. When we come back, would taking out some dams save Northwest salmon? That was our subject last week. Your reactions are next.
Just stop all salmon fishing whatsoever, even catch and release for 6 years, and you'll see the return of salmon.
The power of 2000 takes you back for a moment in time.
Stand by for K2.
March 15th, 1962. KATU goes on the air. Our black and white debut previewed local programs, gave viewers a chance to meet the new Channel 2 News team, and topped it off with the dazzling K2 dancers. Channel 2 News, sharing moments in time, now and into the next millennium. Experience the power of 2000.
Proudly presented by Les Schwab Tire Centers.
Nearly 60 years ago, Weyerhaeuser started North America's first tree farm. 30 years ago, we developed high-yield forestry to help grow more on the land. Now our 100th birthday is almost here, and we're finding new ways to provide forest products and protect forest habitats. So when people ask how old we are, we can say 100, and we're still growing. Weyerhaeuser. The future is growing.
Friends, it's that time of year again when folks in the Northwest start shopping for a new or used RV. At Adventure RV Center, we recommend that you shop our competition, take good notes, select the model you like best, and get their best price in writing. Then come see America's fastest growing RV dealer for the best buy on motorhomes, fifth wheels, trailers, and campers. And with our special financing, you won't make a payment till July of '99. Adventure RV Center, you're going to love the way we sell RVs.
Welcome to the Fleetwood RV Life, where there's adventure and beauty around just about every corner. And whether your adventure's around the county or across the country, a Fleetwood RV is the best way to make the most of it. From campers to travel trailers and fifth wheels to folding trailers to motorhomes, Fleetwood's got the right RV for you. And now's a great time to buy, so call 1-800-FLEETWOOD for the Fleetwood RV dealer near you.
The underwear disintegration phenomenon. It's like all of a sudden it comes unglued and you're left with holes. The only known remedy? New stuff. I wonder what happens in closets when new stuff comes in. Old stuff probably says, you'll be hitting the bleach someday. That's why I love doing laundry. Gives you time to think.
Think about the stuff you need at the Mervyn's California stock-up sale. Ends Saturday.
OSU, our hats are off to you. In the Marshall family, there's this very long tradition with Oregon State. Started back in 1974 and ran for 16 years until 1990. All 7 of us graduated from there. I can remember when my last brother graduated in 1990, my dad pointing back at the Memorial Union, which was behind him, and saying, "Kids, I feel like I own part of that building." And in many ways, he really did.
Kathy Marshall, weeknights at 5 and 11 on Channel 2 News.
Last week on this broadcast, we tackled another of Oregon's thorniest proposals, and that's how to save the salmon. Is the answer to partially remove some dams? They happen to be located in Washington State. Here's a sampling of your reaction in Talkback.
Let's just stop all salmon fishing whatsoever, even catch and release, for 6 years, and you'll see the return of salmon.
One sea lion eats 5 salmon per day. There's an estimated 2,500 sea lions living in the mouth of the Columbia River full time. That's 10,000 salmon per day being eaten by sea lions. Sea lions which are protected by the Environmental Species Act. I believe this dam should be breached, and I don't think the farm are as important, and we can stand to lose more farmland. We cannot stand to lose the fish.
We also had a reaction via email. Vicki Blanchard wrote, "I feel that we should just stop fishing completely for 2 to 3 years and see what happens. I feel that our planet, our whole planet, is going through an environmental change and that the fate of the fish might not be humanly possible to change." Hank Mishima offers this, "I hope we can put our heads together to save a keystone to what makes us who we are. We don't want to be known as those who were so foolish that we destroyed the salmon for our own selfish short-term benefits." Also, we had reaction from our online town hall cafe on the World Wide Web. Aaron Shaver wrote, "I think we should get rid of the dams. I'm sure that we can find other ecologically sound ways of producing power that is less harmful to the habitat of the salmon and other natural wildlife." Steve Fisher disagreed. "Removing the dams is ridiculous. If so, start buying futures in candles and firewood." And that's our town hall for tonight. As we tackled school funding in the state of Oregon, we didn't solve the problems, but we explored them. A lot more perspective tonight. Our thanks to a terrific studio audience. Our thanks to you for watching, to our producers and our staff. Good night. We'll see you next week for Town Hall.